Okay, you were live.
So it's time to start, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so one more time then. Welcome everybody. I'm Max from Web3 Institute from Ukraine, and we're conducting a conference called IEEE DLT Forum in partnership with IEEE, huge technical association, and their blockchain sections, Ukraine sections, and also Encrypted is like one of the most like the biggest media on crypto in Ukraine. And of course, with the Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust, we like conduct our conference. This is the last event. And yeah, here I would like to thank you for organizing all of it and like helping to bring great speakers for today. Really appreciate your support. And let me proceed with the agenda. So the topic today is the national and ecosystem approaches to digital identity and wallets. And we have 4 speakers. We could have their presentations first, and then the questions, and then the discussion. So speakers would be Roman Kravchenko, CEO of 482 Solutions. He will speak on the digital identity as a new institutional form of ownership in the next-gen economy. Then Mirko Molik, identity architect at Sprint, who worked on the digital identity project in Bhutan. Darrell O'Donnell, executive director of IRA Association, deeply involved and knowledgeable about the EUD wallet program. And Alexander Brezhnev, CTO of Privado ID. Without further ado, I pass word to Roman Kravchenko to start the presentation.
Hello, Alex. Thank you much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to share some of our insights. Do you see my screen of presentation?
Yeah, I see it.
Do you see my presentation? Okay. So yeah, hello everyone. Let's start. Today I will speak not mainly about technology side, but about the point of view from economic system on the digital identity. So we consider digital identity as a new institutional form of ownership to manage property rights and so on. So briefly about our company, we are more than 12 years on the market and focusing on building fintech platforms to manage industrial capital and help real sector economy to be more sustainable. So we are from Ukraine, and also more than 5 years we are established international office in Singapore. So like we have experience of comparison with two economic and technological ecosystem, like in Ukraine, like more close to Europe. In Singapore, it's like more close to China, Asia, South Asia. So actually, when I talk about fintech, it's like more conventional term, but for me, it's more close to consider these new types of technology like DLT, blockchain, and so on. This new technology for re-engineering market and social institutions. So it's new type of technology. It's not the information technology or evolution of information technology. It's totally new type and approach and paradigm, like new next stage of our technology evolution. So like DLT, blockchain, allow us to build new types of market and social institutions. Like the main two types of social institutions, like state and the market. And during our long experience of implementing different DLT and blockchain platforms, we are focusing mostly on the real sector of economy, like energy sector, agri-food, and so on. So it's not very easy tasks to manage such projects compared like with most of the Web3 use cases, like about honestly about speculation, like someone we can buy and someone we can something we can buy and something we can trade. We started also about our backgrounds, not about like some logos, about our partners, just about our background. We are together with decentralized Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust since 2018 and like previous Hyperledger Foundation, and contributed to different frameworks, like starting from SafeTools, then Hyperledger Fabric, and had solid experience implementation with the different types of industrial-led frameworks from Hyperledger. Also, we involved here in Singapore in Global Finance Technology Network on building ecosystems, Singaporean ecosystem and ecosystem of fintech in Asia and across Middle East region. We are working with organization and entities in energy sector, like Energy Web, and together with Energy Web, we've also implemented some solution based on decentralized identifiers to manage energy assets. Together with Singapore Institute of Technology, we like discovered the different use cases, how we can implement fintech and blockchain, also in decentralized energy, and so on. We have a very interesting project with DTEC, one of our Ukrainian largest investor in energy sector, also of implementation blockchain-based platform for energy asset management. So mostly this work about managing the assets and capital of industrial enterprises. So we started to collaborate with Hyperledger Foundation since 2017. We was previously the member of Hyperledger Foundation within the project REMI, and we built decentralized public infrastructure platform based on Hyperledger SafeTools. Also, our product was Electrodo was ranked among top 5 projects in Hyperledger Challenge. So we have quite a big history of collaboration with Linux Foundation and Hyperledger Foundation. Today's Linux Foundation Decentralized Trust. Some words about theoretical framework. And like what's the background of our practical approach and implementation use cases. So like we discovered the problem of the transferring the value and managing the property rights since 2018, and have some publication about how we can use blockchain as transaction protocol for transfer of values in cluster economic systems. So our idea and vision that the like next generation of our economy will be based on the cluster model. So we'll have no large enterprises, but we'll have a large, small and large different economic clusters based on small to large firms. And this cluster can be very efficient from the economic point of view. Why? I will talk about this the next slides. So based on this concept, we can build very efficient economic system with some specific properties like recursivity, emergence, and sustainability. And like the vision of the evolution of the industrial enterprise, all industrial enterprises will evolve to not like technological companies, but in financial companies, financial institutions. So all companies will be financial institution and implement different technologies to manage assets like exchange, similar to exchange today. So this from energy sector to agri-food sector, all companies will be fintech. A few moments we need to focusing on key concepts from new institutional economics. It's like key background, this like foundation, theoretical foundation, general foundation of this approach. Why we talk about digital identity and why we talk about decentralized digital identity from the point of view of economic systems. First of all, if you want to learn more about institutional economics, you can read the publication from John Commons, Institutional Economics, and Commons defined the institution as the collective action and control, liberation, and expansion of individual action. Individual action is transaction. It's important to understand that transactions, not the exchange of commodities or goods, something that, but is the alienation and acquisition between individuals of the rights of property, and this is the key point that during the making economic transaction, we exchange not the commodities, but change the institutions and change the status of the rights of property. Like more close to applied issues, applied aspects of institutional economic you can find in new chapter of economics theory, this new institutional economics. Here you can see fathers of new institutional economics like Ronald Coase, Oliver Williamson, and Douglas North. First of all, our practical implementation, our project based on Ronald Coase theory of transaction cost. And we can define institution in addition to the vision from and definition from Commons. It's the rules of the game. So it's like different formal constraints such as rules, laws, constitution, and so on. Or can be informal constraints such as norms of behavior, different conventions, and so on. And we need to note that institution is the rules of the game, but institute is organization. So it's like players of this game. The game under the game, we consider the economic game, the market game. Little bit more about transaction. What like transactions in a nutshell? Transactions refers to transfer or exchange of value, so rights of property over goods or assets. So it's not the exchange of goods or assets; it's exchange of rights of property across a technologically interface. For example, it can be market boundary or some law framework. So also we can understand transaction as action in which involves the process of establishing, transferring, maintaining property rights over the value. And that's why we can talk that blockchain and DLT totally change the approach how we can manage property rights today, because all entities from like persons to organizations can manage property rights by ourselves without some intermediaries, just using protocols and technological approach. Very briefly about transaction costs. In addition to transaction, when we execute the transaction, we need to pay some costs for transaction execution, economic transaction execution. And this cost includes the cost of resources we spent on establishing, maintaining, and changing the institutional arrangements. First of all, it's about changing the status of property rights. So, like transferring the property rights or changing some elements of these property rights. And the transaction costs represent and represent the cost of utilizing and enforcing specific rights, and the cost associated with information searching. For example, some counterparties understand that this right counterparty, and we can make transactions with this counterparty. Also, it's the costs of negotiation and enforcement the agreement between counterparties. And the main impact and main contribution from the Roland Coase transaction theory, it was proof and understanding that we have two types of transaction cost: external transaction cost, transaction costs on execution transaction using the market mechanism, and such name internal transaction costs. This transaction costs inside the firm to manage some transaction without involving in a market mechanism. So as I talked previously about clusters, we can consider economic clusters a big firm that like include another firms, large or small. And inside this cluster, we can define new rules and reduce transaction cost of making transaction not in the market, but inside these clusters, just based on the agreement and protocols. And the evolution on Roland Coase theory, it will be it was the Coase theorem. Here we can see 4 conditions that we need to follow to to achieve the economic equilibrium. First of all, the first condition of Coase theorem is clearly defined property rights. All right. So in this point, we understand that we can use decentralized identity systems and different implementation variation of the centralized identity system to define property rights for all stakeholders across value chain. The second condition, we need to make sure that our market structure open and competitive. So using DAO, decentralized autonomous organization approach, we can build such market structure. And also we need to provide free and symmetric access to market information. So all participants need can get all needed information to make the decision about making the transaction. And we need to achieve low or near zero transaction costs because transaction costs never can be zero. And in this case, we can apply different Web3 protocols to satisfy these conditions. If we satisfy all these four conditions based on Ronald Coase theorem, we can achieve economic equilibrium. So we can build economically optimal system, and it's like this system can be very efficient regardless of initial distribution of property rights. Why? Because all participants can create some agreements and make negotiation between each other and achieve this economic equilibrium. Of course, provide the proof, analytical and like very close to mathematical proof of such approach. So that's why we talked about the key importance for economy of the digital identity. So digital identity is not the like technological application of technology and some use case of using blockchain or DLT. It's about a new approach, how we can manage property rights and achieve, build and achieve economic equilibrium on any level. It can be the level of private entity like the firm. It can be the level of regional economy. It can be the level of the national economy. And we need just to follow and satisfy these conditions. That's why we can consider blockchain as a new technology, new types of technology for value management based on such components as digital identity, decentralized digital identity, or self-sovereign identity, making the possible to manage transaction within the protocols, tokenization. So like we can tokenize the pieces of value and transfer these pieces of value across technology protocols and smart contracts. So I can satisfy and follow the conditions of Ronald Coase theorem about guarantee of property rights without like involving some intermediaries. And as example, Hyperledger Fabric has very powerful identity system based on PKI approach, and this digital certificate based on the X509 standard. It's not only technological approach. It's about new methods to manage property rights, and this is the cornerstone to build an economic platform that can manage micro and macro and even national level of economy. I will provide very briefly some industrial use cases, how we implement practically this approach. First of all, today we building the platform for to manage industrial capitals named Electroda, and this platform, the goal of this platform to bring together industrial enterprises, clusters, and investors in a single point, and manage assets and capital based on this theory that I provided before. We implemented together with European partners within the program I4Trust. It was the experiment about achieving and building ecosystem for trusted data sharing, and together with Ukrainian enterprises and enterprises from Spain, we built data space, economic data space, in which we implement this approach to manage property rights on data on assets, and share and transfer these assets and data across all counterparties in this system. And this first stage of implementation such system in Ukraine, in European Union, and connect Ukrainian industrial clusters to European Union cluster based ecosystem. So few takeaways about today's presentation. Digital identity, first of all, cryptography based and DLT enabled, can guarantee and protect the property rights, and we can just define the governance, define the owners, some assets, and implement this governance system in like using smart contracts. Blockchain enables the creation of immutable economic systems and ecosystems, very stable and very with high performance from economic point of view. And blockchain helps us to improve and transform traditional institutions using this new economic approach. And finally, we can use fintech platforms to make possible sustainable cluster-based economies. So for today, that's all. If you have questions, please ask me. I will glad to answer.
Yeah, thank you so much, Roman. I suggest we leave questions to after all speakers go. So we also had some identity hack or attack in the chat. So I suggest if you want to have ask a question, put it in the YouTube chat. I guess that might be a bit easier to track. And on this note, let's proceed to the next speaker. And Mirko, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, I haven't prepared any slide. I have opened some tabs in my browser. So let's see how it goes. Yes, so as Max introduced me, I'm from Sprint, the Federal Agency of Disruptive Innovation from Germany. And we have to implement something by law. To be exactly, it's the European Digital Identity Wallet. So it's from Europe that says, okay, here's an EU law that all you have to implement the EUDI wallet until Christmas next year, so end of 2026. And the main goal here in Europe is to harmonize, standardize all the interactions so that I, as a German citizen, can also use my wallet in Spain and France and Italy, Poland, and so ever. So what they did in the first place is the implementing acts going more into details based on the eIDAS2 regulation, but also working on the architecture reference framework. So in this document, you will find all the information, also in detail, how to deep dive in what are the requirements for the wallet, for the issuer, for the verifier, and also what are the different standards and protocols to do this. And also, what we really liked and what really helped us is that this is also discussion topics. So normally, when they are introducing a new technical specification, for example, how the pitch should be issued, they have discussion topics where you can participate via GitHub. So it's a very transparent process. So the main idea here is some experts make a suggestion, then others can give feedback, and then this will be go into one of the standard organization, like typical for Europe, ETSI, but also W3C, OpenID Foundation, and ISO. So we see, and also IETF. So we see that multiple organizations are working on the standards where the whole EUDR wallet is built up on. And what is also really great is that the EU also gives a reference implementation. So you do not need to implement everything by yourself. So here we see the public GitHub repository where everything is under an open source license. So you can easily, you do not need to pay license fees, or so you can use it even for your commercial wallet. So you do not need to to build something on scratch, which is very cool. And what we as Germany did, we actually used the provided source code for our own wallet. And we open sourced, for example, the architecture documentation, so how this wallet is built. It is planned that this wallet that is will come for the German citizen will be also fully open source. It's right now still under development, but here a lot of architecture informations like specific data is managed or which algorithms are implemented are already open source. Not directly on GitHub, but government provided GitLab instance on opencode.de. So here we have full transparency for the interaction. And as most of you should know, just an app itself, a wallet itself, will not really help. You need an ecosystem with it. As you say, okay, I have a wallet where I can store my public and private key, but when there is no interaction, it's kind of worthless. So what we are also defining is the so-called blueprint. So it's how to set up the whole ecosystem in Germany. So the main goal, of course, is that we are interoperable with all the other member states, but this is how the ecosystem in Germany will look like. And in Germany, we say, okay, how do you get the digital identity? Every German citizen has access to this plastic card or national ID card, and there's a digital identity already included. And the idea is that you can tap this card via NFC on your smartphone and then derive digital identity via the PID provider, so the personal identification provider that will issue this credential into your EUDI wallet. And here, of course, a lot of regulation takes place. So here we have, for example, that all the wallet providers have to be certified and are then registered in the EUDI wallet registrar, which will then be notified to the EU trust list. We also have then the different verifiers. So here we have public relying parties, so governments, the main hall, and so on, and also the private sector like companies and so on that can interact with this EUDI wallet. And of course, we will have standards for certification, which is quite relevant to guarantee a level of security and privacy for maximum security. And we are also having this registrar where you will see all the issuers and verifiers that are taking actions in this place. And we make it very public so that civil society or consumer protection organizations are able to look, okay, which data are requested by this company and to file complaints if necessary. And so this is the whole idea in Germany. As said, we have a lot of here open source. Again, people are able to give feedback to us. We already received over 100 issues or questions on open code and are always happy to answer here. And yes, as mentioned, you will find a lot of information here. Again, everything open source under the CC license, how trust is established in this whole ecosystem, what data will be in the PID, and so on. And what we also made, because to define the decision, because sometimes you have a lot of options. Where do you store your identity? Where do you store your identity? Are you using blockchain? Is it in the cloud? Is it on your smartphone? Are you using a FIDO token and so on? So with this, we had the Funke approach. So here we had multiple options, like for example, where the trust is coming from. And we made a competition where we said, okay, teams internationally, not only from Germany, could apply for this disruptive innovation project, where some of them got funded, some of them didn't. And here, for example, we had the 6 teams that were in the funded track, and the requirement was that these teams will open source the results. So here, because we say here, you got public money, and the result is that everyone is able to consume this data. So here you will find the different wallets in different stages. And as mentioned, we wanted not just having just German companies, but international. So we had companies from the Netherlands, from Switzerland, and the non-funded track, we had even Google and Samsung. So it was from startup to big tech enterprises, bringing all this disruptive innovation, also dealing with zero knowledge proofs and so on. And we used all this feedback from the teams to optimize our blueprint and also give the feedback back. I will post later all the links in the chat. So here also you can go on open code without any registration, and then say, hey, here I have a fully working wallet with multiple stuff. You can use it. Some of these wallets are also in the App Store or Play Store to download it and to consume it. And last but not least, we are still a consortium, which means we are funded by the National Ministry of Digitalization, and where also multiple other companies are involved. But we are also doing is the open online consultation. So we are hosting sessions bi-weekly where we are talking about different topics. For example, how to deal with self-asserted data, because in some situations, data is not always verified. You want to use pseudonyms. And these recordings are also all available here, which you can watch. All of them are in English, and we are doing this every 2 weeks or so when there's a topic. And you will also find the calendar where you can subscribe for free to get new information when there is a new topic. So yeah. What we also have in this repository is we had our Funke conference where we had in Berlin 3 times already, pitching the teams, showing their disruptive innovation, and also presenting cool stuff. And here again, all the recording is available on open code. And while we are not participating officially in the Open Wallet Foundation, I think I can make some advertisement. We are very happy for this because we see that a lot of companies are very grateful for open source projects out there, which means so we as a project, we will provide the government sector, the government overview, as you saw in not this picture, but in this picture. So we will provide the wallet, we will provide the PIP provider and the registration. But what we will not provide is actually the software for issuers or verifiers. And this is really great to have this Open Wallet Foundation initiative, because here people can say, okay, I need an issuer. And they could just, okay, I can use the Akapai. Or they say, okay, I don't want to have already built and ready to use issuer verifier. I want to customize it. Then they can see, okay, I'm using a framework like Credo that is supporting multiple standards and is used also by member states out there to build wallet and also other countries or companies around the world. And even here we have other more deep dive projects. So we see for specific credential formats, we have implementations in different languages, because not everyone is a fan of Python or maybe Kotlin or Rust or so. And this is very great to see this kind of initiatives. And I think this is done from my side, and I would give over to the next speaker.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we're coming to Daryl O'Donnell. So yeah, please come and share.
Sounds good. Just give me 1 second here. I just have a very short deck to present. Just as an intro, I am Daryl O'Donnell, the Executive Director of the IRA Association. We are a Swiss nonprofit. I'll discuss who our members are, but we have a combination of both commercial and non-commercial members. But the reason that IRA was created is we've recognized broadly across both commercial and non-commercial industries that trust, especially in the digital world, has been plummeting. People have been trying to compensate. It hasn't been working. Risk and compliance keeps growing. The costs of that keep growing. And AI has basically taken what was already a decaying function and just thrown gas on the fire. It has just started to accelerate the decline of what can we trust in our digital worlds, which bleeds into the real world. What the founders and members of IRA recognized, were member-owned, is that a problem of this magnitude cannot be solved by a single organization. So in essence, what we're saying is, the internet does not have a trust layer, and we're fixing that. That is a huge initiative. The members that founded IRA and have continued to join understand that we need to work together with our partners, with our peers. You can replace the word peer with competitor, with our customers and with each other to basically try to figure out how do we build and sustain trust, because it's a cornerstone for any organization that's trying to grow. And we also recognize that these challenges require multi-stakeholder solutions. It requires the varied and wildly different at times, difference of opinions, difference of viewpoints that come when you take civil society, government, large and small organizations, commercial organizations, individual rights. When you take all of those viewpoints together, it really does require all of us to work together on that. And we knew basically that we needed a neutral place to do this work, so we could create a network effect that not just builds, not just, but also restores digital trust. It's broken down quite a bit. So we basically created Aira, because Aira really is a movement. We internally, and with many of our members, we talk about, how do strange dance festivals get going? It always starts with someone doing some funky dance and other people just staring at them, and then slowly people jump in and suddenly, boom, everyone's up and dancing. The folks that have joined Aira recognize that we need to have a foundational trust layer. We need to remove the barriers. We need to reinforce digital trust, and we can compete on top of that. But it's a common piece for all of us. So Aira itself is member owned. It's member governed. We have two big buckets of members. I've mentioned non-commercial. These are we just actually finished an AGM earlier this morning. We have civil society members, ecosystems. These are actual digital trust ecosystems that are in the wild. Governments and individuals. These are on the non-commercial side of things. They're there to represent what it is that they need to see, that they want to see, and they have a very different viewpoint from our commercial members. And we just have two levels. We have strategic members, those who have recognized that digital trust is fundamental to their mission, and are driving proofs of concept and pilot projects. They also, when we founded the organization, one of the reason we have non-commercial members is that even with the best of intent, the commercial members recognized, the founders recognized that if we do a purely commercial approach to this, we will inevitably likely do the wrong things and end up in a similar place to where we are today. That's why there's, as an equal seat at the table, we have it all balanced. For every board member that is on the commercial side, we have a board member on the non-commercial side. Our members, just an idea of who they are and why they're here. I won't go through all of the logos, but we have a wide range from tech stack providers, systems integrators, end users from both a commercial and non-commercial basis. We have government issuers. We have the country of Bhutan, for example, is one of our members. We have various different civil society groups, digital trust ecosystems, but they're there for really three reasons. One is to lead. Our members are almost by definition, if they've joined Aira, they are somebody who leads and drives innovation in their industry. They also are looking to provide and receive influence. They want to shape the future. They want to shape where things are, because there already are movements. We've already heard of a couple of things here, and Mirko in the overall Sprint D team is one of the strong leaders in the European space. They want to be involved with people like them. People, as Seth Godin says, people like us do things like this. And they know that Aira is a place for collaborating, because we provide a neutral forum so we can have the hard discussions where, under Chatham House rule, we can have government regulators speak with financial institutions and the tech providers who are driving their overall capabilities, along with the lawyers and systems integrators in the room. That's a hard environment, but this is what's necessary to establish real trust. Whoops, I have lost control of my keyboard. There we go. The way we do this is we link through business and governance and technology. What I mean by that is we work on a concept of what's called terms and tech. Terms are really the business and governance terms that you need to share information. These are the assurances. How do I have assurance that you are doing what you said you would do? Or how do you have assurance that I'm doing what I said I would do to meet the requirements of a particular ecosystem? We also want to work on liability and indemnity. what has happened in this industry, the overall digital identity, some would say decentralized. When I say decentralized, I don't mean fully decentralized. I mean, when governments are recognizing each other, citizens are sovereign, nation states are sovereign. We are in a decentralized world. But when we start talking about liability and indemnity of sharing information, whether that's deep in an automotive supply chain, in an immigration scenario, in a overall social scenario, liability and indemnity pop up. What our technology-led members were initially doing was stepping back when a liability and indemnity came up. What they've learned is no, we don't want to step back. We want to understand what the concerns are in liability and indemnity because those actually are a value signal. Meaning when the leaders in an organization step in with liability and indemnity concerns, it's likely because they see some value. They just want to understand the liability and indemnity needs of sharing information. But fundamentally, on a business and governance basis, we're looking for consistency. How do I share information with you today? How do I share information with you tomorrow? And if I share with someone else, is it similar? Is it consistent? On a tech basis, we want to make sure that we're leveraging all of the open standards. Miracle did a great job of discussing where these are, but they meet the business needs. We want to have real interoperability. Just because you say your wires can connect doesn't mean we can actually conduct business digitally. We want to make sure we're sharing across ecosystems, but also that the same technology works internal. Any reasonable size organization has barriers internally for good reasons. Maybe it's required by law, or just this is how things happened. But we want to make sure that the same technologies and same approaches, same business and governance and tech approaches work to share information internally as I can use externally. We also want to establish technical trust, which is on the cryptographic basis. Is all of this stuff true? That leverages what we call human trust, which really is the business and the governance side. And on a tech basis, we're also looking really for consistency. We don't want the foundations moving all the time. And one of the ways we do this is we use what we call composable governance. We, much like good architecture in tech, we build in layers. So the IRA Trust Network, which is what we're responsible for, I'll describe that very quickly, and then I think I'll be largely done when I describe that. We are working on the basis of supporting various different global networks. The goal and the real reason for the IRA Trust Network is it's really a thin layer of governance that is very, very broad in capabilities. So we set basic terms, for example, for business governance and tech. As an example, the IRA Trust Network has no real opinion on assurance levels, but we make room for them because the networks that sit on top of us need those things. We want to have a consistent way of conveying information that says, this is an assurance level, it's an assurance level X, and here's where you go find out more about what that means. Same thing goes for the commercial terms, the liability and indemnity, because the broad industry really needs that for their own stakeholders. If you have the automotive industry on a global basis, it looks fundamentally different than, say, the supply chain for mining materials or the food supply chain. That's just on the supply chain front. Get into financial services, get into government to government. You have very different networks, but they have similar needs at the highest level. They want to know assurances. They want to know the liability and indemnity. But then as we get into jurisdictions or regions or industries, these get tailored. They tailor to meet their own needs. If you take a look at, I saw someone earlier mentioned Gaia X and data spaces, and Catena X is the automotive side. The automotive industry has a very particular set of needs, and they're meeting those needs, and they need consistent governance. So if we look at what these are, we're also working on IRA Card, the IRA Card protocol, which is basically very simple. Some would call it almost trivial credentials. And we're working with various different industries right now, financial services, government, thing called the First Person Project, where each of them leverage the same capabilities, but have their own distinct needs. Financial services does not look the same as a much more, say, social network oriented project like the First Person Network. And how does this all work? The foundational components, if I look at the underlying technology, which supports the business and the governance, is a trust registry fabric. Mirko was pointing out a lot of his data sources really are what we would call trust registries. They're the authoritative systems that can give us an answer. Does entity X have authorization Y in ecosystem Z. But the trust registries really give you the who. This is the who you can connect with who are in the network. We also have a conformance test suite, which validates the connections. That's kind of the how. How do I know that the dial tone, for those of us who remember landlines, that the dial tone is going to be there? I'll be able to make a call, that I'll be able to share the information that I was able to share yesterday. When I have a new partner come into the fold, we don't want everyone to have the same stack. We do want everybody to be interoperable at a real interoperability level, business, governance, and technology. And underneath that, really, as we evolve, this creates a market of marketplaces where we have different information that we can share. And this is kind of the what and why you're actually connecting. Give you a quick story on what we mean by ecosystems and the trust registry fabric and conformance test suite. So we have a number of member ecosystems. IRA itself is an ecosystem, but that really forms the IRA Trust Network. We are not about creating ecosystems ourselves beyond an ecosystem of ecosystem model. What the IRA Association does, our job, we're member owned again, but we are here, we're the Swiss neutral nonprofit. We govern. We're neutral but opinionated. We have opinions on how we govern. We govern the IRA Trust Network. And we run some technology. We have a registry of registries which points to the ecosystems. These ecosystems are connected. That's technically using a thing called the Trust Registry Query Protocol. And then we make sure that those ecosystems are able to connect and share information. That's where the conformance test suite comes in, because we want to know that those connections are going to work, that they continue to work. As software is revised, as we go through and change things, we want to make sure that things continue to work. If I just do a quick, how does this function? If I look at anyone who's doing the issuer holder verifier model, what we've recognized is you have to have governance, and that's what trust registries do. Our trust registry is the one that recognizes other ecosystems. So we can have, a chamber of commerce in every country, and below that, because they have their own hierarchies. We can have different automotive sectors, different financial services groups who run their own ecosystems. We don't tell them how to run their thing. We have our cards, but I want to just rip through this. Our conformance test suite gets in there. What it's doing is testing between the wallet and the verifier. How does information move? But it also gets into testing all of the pieces of the network, including all of the trust registry tests. Because I can technically share information. I can give you a mobile driver's license, and if you don't do the trust registry test, I may pass all of the cryptographic things for you to not realize that I'm just a high school student selling driving licenses, so my friends can go buy beer on a weekend. I wanted to mention who our key partners are, because we are leveraging. We do not write specifications; we leverage them. Our conformance test suite is opinionated on how we interpret ambiguities, but we work with the other organizations, whether that be DIF, Linux Foundation, OpenID, OpenWallet, Trust over IP, IETF, ISO, a whole bunch more of these, because they're creating those standards that we want to make sure that we're leveraging. And that is it. I did want to, in our discussions, I captured one of the screens from earlier from Roman's slide. So that is it for me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And now we're moving to our last speaker, Alexander Brezhnev.
Yeah, hello everyone. 1 second, I will share my slides. Okay, for some reason it is not working. So, Max, I will share you the link. Could you please
Yeah, I
share?
can slide it. Yeah, I can
Thank
share
you.
it for you.
Okay, so I will start. My name is Alexander Brezhnev, and I'm a CTO at Privado ID and also Billions Network. And today I'm going to present you what we are building, and it is a privacy-preserving digital identity. So, what is it? Like, Max, can you click next? So, Privado ID and Billions, it is a privacy-preserving identity solutions. One is focused on B2B market, Privado ID, another Billions on B2C. And basically, they are sharing same features and same approach to the market, to the development. So we are building a, first of all, self-sovereign identity solution. It means that each user is controlling its identity data and has full control over it. It is stored on the user side, on user device, and under user's control. Another principle is privacy by default. So what we are doing is that whenever verifier is asking a user to share some piece of information, then we are generating zero knowledge proof instead of sharing actual information, like underlying information, I mean. For example, you don't need to share your passport data just to prove that you are over 18. So in case of over 18 request, what we are sharing is only the fact that user is adult, right? And in case, for example, that we need to share, let's say, name verify to verify that it is really this person, then what would be shared is actually username and full name of the user, right, from the passport, and with a zero knowledge proof that this name is really present in the passport issued by trusted issuer, that this credential is not revoked, and verifier can verify this information using zero knowledge proofs. Nothing else is shared, not a passport number, not the date of the issuance, and no other metadata is shared. That is important because in many solutions, when they are talking about zero knowledge proofs, what they are actually implementing is just hiding of the signature of the issuer, basically. So it's kind of re-randomizable digital signature that you could do basically only selective disclosure. In our case, we are building this based on ZK Snarks. So it is a circuit-based, ZK circuit-based, and we can prove different complex statements. Like at the same time, we could prove that the user is not, for example, in residing in a sanctioned country, right? Then our solutions are open source and decentralized. It is W3C decentralized identity and verifiable credentials standards compliant. It features off-chain and on-chain verification. What it means is that regular application could consume the data, verifiable data, and also smart contracts could consume it and verify on-chain that it is real data coming from the credential, from the trusted issuer. And another important feature is we are using pairwise identifiers. It means that with each counterparty that you are interacting, you get a different identifier. So it prevents tracking and linking of identity interactions between different parties. Can you go next? So I briefly touched this topic of self-sovereign identity, right? So here are the main actors. Identity holder is a user. Issuer is the one who is issuing verifiable credentials. And then verifier is a application or person who is consuming this data. So issuer is giving a verifiable credential to a user, and then user generates zero knowledge proof to prove some statement that was asked by the verifier. Let's go next. And what kind of verifiable data it could be, verifiable credentials? It could be anything like that person have proven that he's live person by performing biometric liveness verification. It could be also with uniqueness check. For example, we are actually protecting with some blockchain projects from bots coming and claiming rewards from these blockchain projects. Then a user could have different identity documents issued in the form of verifiable credentials. What we have is a little bit different from many of the identity solutions, is that in this specific case, when user has a national identity document that is NFC enabled, then user himself could scan this document with the phone and generate zero knowledge proof that he has a correct document and that person himself, like technically it is application, transforms this passport data into a verifiable credential. In this case, data is not leaving the device to be verified and to be transformed into verifiable credential. And you could actually test it and see in our Billions application. Then other levels of, like, it could be compliance. We have integrations with different KYC providers that could do AML checks, sanction list checks, do also know your transaction checks for blockchain wallets, and so on. And another interesting part of the whole ecosystem is that it is usable not only by the humans, but actually AI agents could benefit from the verifiable data. And eventually it is end users who are benefiting from all of this, because we could bring trust into the interactions not only between the humans and applications, but also between agents and users and agents, right? So we have published recently our Deep Trust framework. It's a white paper on how it could be implemented using decentralized identifiers, verifiable credentials, and blockchain. Can you go next? Yeah, so I welcome you to check this out. Let's go next. And now a bit on use cases. So one of the use cases that I already mentioned, it is possible to protect applications from bots or from CBILs. So for example, if you're just worried that you have comments posted on a website, for example, yeah, that they are coming not from a real human, then you might want to check if it if it is a live person, yeah, and if it is a human. But for example, for voting or for distributing monetary rewards, you would really want to check if it is a unique human. And that is all possible with our identity solution. And how is it working is that when user is sharing the proof that he is unique, we are deriving identifiers that is specific for this specific application and session inside this application, so that it is also not traceable where user proved its uniqueness between different applications or between different sessions of, let's say, voting inside the same application. Yeah, like between different elections, you stay anonymous. You cannot be linked that these two ballots belong to the same person in these two different elections. But still, you can verify that it is a real human, first of all, and that it is eligible human to vote. Then we have Know Your Agent. It is a kind of new paradigm that right now it is hard to verify with whom you are interacting, and as more and more agents would be performing on their own autonomously, it would be almost completely impossible to verify it without some kind of identity solution like ours, and without portable reputation that could be coming from owner or developer of the as such agent, or from reviews of real humans who we are interacting with this agent. Then you all know this use case, Know Your Customer. So it's just verifying that a user is, for example, not from a sanctioned country for compliance reasons, for whatever else. So it could be done, as I said, on chain and off chain. Different applications need different levels of assurance and different attributes shared. So one of such cases is real world asset tokenization, where it is needed for compliance reasons, and we have a few applications already running with our identity solution in production, using it for real world asset tokenization compliance. And another important, and now it's talked a lot, is age verification, since some applications start to get access to content or to functionality in such applications or websites based on age. And it is very important to make sure these applications do not get personal information that they don't need to get. Like they just need to verify that person is allowed to use this functionality, right? They should not understand even that if it's minor interacting or adult. So what they should understand when they receive a zero knowledge proof, that only eligible humans of proper age can generate zero knowledge proof that they are over 18 and can after that access the platform. So it is very important not to leak any kind of information about the person, to protect, again, minors from unnecessary tracking. And of course, it's privacy of everyone. So it's very important. Let's go next. And one more next. So that's why we were selected to participate in the European Blockchain Sandbox to implement specifically this use case to do age verification. Together with the partners, with a partner called Privately, which is a face verification service that could do age verification on device, where data is not leaving the device of a person, and they are able to issue verifiable credential out of it, and then our service, Billions or Privado, would provide this level of abstraction from and disconnect between who is asking this service provider to perform age verification. Because for many regulations, it is explicitly said that age verification service or for other use cases, it is also important. They should not know for which specific website it was requested, right? Or for specific application. So in our case, application is running on the user's side. It is a mobile application or a web wallet. But important thing is that this data stays on user device, and it is always encrypted, even when we use a web wallet. So we have a web wallet, but it is using end-to-end encryption storage, encrypted storage, where data is encrypted with user keys, so that Billions and Privado cannot technically get access and decrypt and see what's inside and with whom user have interacted. Let's go next. Now here's a short demo how it works. Please play. So it's a demo website that we have where we could test this integration. It shows our web wallet right now is launched, and it is asking users to authenticate using crypto wallet. We have actually also support for social sign-in methods. Then user is asked to perform face verification using a third-party provider. In this case, it was Synapse that we recorded this demo. We have also other providers since Synapse is not on the market anymore, but yeah. We have Privately, we have Allpass, we have other providers. And yeah, as you can see, it was very quick. So user just clicked a button to verify on a website. User was redirected to our web wallet where he signed in with a crypto wallet. Technically, cryptographic keys were derived from his crypto wallet at that moment, which were used to generate identity keys, authenticate into the end-to-end encrypted storage, fetch data from it, understand that there is no such credential for which was requested to perform age verification. Then a wallet understands it and redirects user to the issuer website, which is shown in the embedded web iframe, and a user is getting this credential live. After that, he is generating zero knowledge proof, and voila, we are done a user has proven his age or that it is a live person or unique person. That is what we are doing for example, to protect blockchain projects from CBILS. We are doing this kind of uniqueness check. It looks exactly like in this demo. Just like 15 seconds and you are verified. On this, let's go next. I want to say thank you. Here's my contact data, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Well, now we come to interactive part of our session. So I have a few questions for experts, and then I will read also questions from the chat. Okay. So the first question would be national versus ecosystem models. What is the single biggest trade-off between a national digital ID system like EUD or DIA in Ukraine and an ecosystem-led model, like mentioned also from the Linux Foundation, and who ultimately should be the trust anchor? You
Can
could
I-
either speak or maybe raise a hand, whatever you
Yeah.
prefer.
I'm not overly shy, Max. Question for you: when you say the way we look at the term, at least in IRA, of a digital trust ecosystem, is they're typically very focused on a particular function. So if I use, for example, the Bhutan National Digital Identity, which is one of our members, they're a national digital identity ecosystem which has many sub ecosystems inside of it. We work with LFDT all the time. In my world, it's a community, but they're not competing with a national ID or a regional like EU level ID. Like they're different things. But maybe I'm misunderstanding the question.
Maybe it comes from our angle from Ukraine being like we want to like rebuild trust and so
Okay.
on, and what pathways, like if we compare them, which
So
how the-
maybe it's okay. So maybe you're looking at the again, I've always got a business, governance, and tech, but you're maybe looking at what is it you want to do as a nation? What are the business and governance and tech pieces behind it? For example, LFDT has many pieces of the tech stacks. Many of our members build their tech stack at LFDT, at Open Wallet Foundation. But when it comes to the ecosystems they deploy, the ecosystems are, in our world, business and governance constructs. Perhaps the analog there is the European Union. We saw Mirko was discussing what the German government is providing, that there are many initiatives there that are providing open source capabilities that are living in the EU, in OWF, whatever, but there's also Stack at LFDT, right? You kind of got to look at the tech piece as they're all over the place. Does that help?
I think we have to look at two different angles, and one is let's a bit shift into the business perspective. Who has the benefit? And in the whole system, it's the verifier, and the verifier wants trust. And what is trust? Trust is liability. That I can be sure that, for example, when you present your mobile driver license, that you present me your degree, that you are a doctor, that I can be sure that this was issued by an authorized person, because I would assume everyone from us here can generate a key pair and sign a transaction or whatever. So we can all sign a doctor's degree and claim we are a doctor and say, hey, it's a credential. But what value has it when there is no trust framework behind it? And in the EU, so they started with the eIDAS 10 years ago or so to say we need a harmonized level of trust that we can trust each other, that we need the infrastructure. And then they just said, okay, we're using PKI. We know this for decades. We know it's kind of solid. And we just connect these nodes. We have trustless. And this worked for qualified signatures. And now they are trying to scale this. So here, this is long pages of governance, which is very complicated. And you could argue like, yes, you are very dependent on this because the government could say, okay, we are canceling you. We are revoking it because we are at the head of the trust model, and decentralization, or the main idea of Web3, will not protect you here because it is hierarchy based. But you have, on the other hand, this liability, what business really wants. They want to be really sure, like they want to look at the policy, like, okay, is this really the Linux Foundation? And if not, who is liable? At what amount of damage am I covered? So here we saw the big shift from my personal perspective of the whole Web3 forks that says, hey, everyone needs to be independent sovereign, but then they created products where you have no value, no demand out there. This may be totally different in other areas of the world. So I would personally say Europe is quite stable from the trust anchor. Okay, we had Great Britain that left the EU, but it's still working. So I would say the EUDI model has its benefit of this hierarchy, not perfect for every use case, but especially in this trust model, as long as the EU keeps together.
Yeah, I can, Mirko, that's a great example of, there's a reason we look to government documents in the physical world and also now digitally. I can give you a working example from British Columbia, where I live. So I have both a physical service card, has my driver's license information on it. I also have a person card on my phone. The liability model for the government of British Columbia is there is no liability. None. But when I'm doing different things, like if I have to prove that I don't even know if I have to do this anymore, or to get a new cell phone, it's been a while since I got a cell phone, I can show that, and that's sufficient for, on a trust basis, on a low cost transaction. That's not going to be sufficient for prove it is you to open up a bank account and move $150 million. That is a wholly different level. What we've seen in our membership, for example, one of our members is a law firm called Fragaman, huge law firm that no one knows because all they do is immigration and travel. But they are happy to stand in between, for example, if they're helping someone migrate from London to New York, an executive, there's no liability going to be taken on for that executive to go get a cell phone. A law firm's not going to take on any liability, not a chance. But they will intervene for that high-flying executive to open up a private wealth management account at a bank. But that transaction, they may have government ID. They're the ones who are stepping in front of that, saying, we've checked out the government ID, and as an organization, I'm willing to take on liability. Those transactions may be counted in hundreds or thousands or more of dollars of value because they are taking on the liability. To your point, Mirko, it's the liability and the consequence that people want. Government will say, you can try and sue me if I gave the wrong driver's license to somebody, but good luck, right? So yeah, it's a hard combination.
And for example, where I clearly see your advantage is when we going over the border of the EU. So EU has EU law, so all member states have to align. Now, the biggest questions we have from companies from the EU, like, okay, how can we interact with companies from Canada, from the USA, from Japan, from Australia? They are not in the EU. So here we have our clear limitations because we say, well, in the EU, we have regulations that will cover all member states. But right now we are stopping at the border, and we all know how long it takes that some member states will align. We know that there are countries on the way preparing to be aligned with the EU requirements on trust, but it's a very long process. So other organization or trust systems like the one that you are trying to build up are more independent. So they are inter or global working. So it may be that EU has let's say a faster start because we have existing regulations, but it will take us longer in the time to onboard all the countries out there. Because when I say, okay, I can very easy travel in Europe with my PIT or mobile driver license, but for each country in South America, South Africa, they all need to be onboarded to the trust system, because the whole idea of the EUDI wallet is that we are protecting the citizens, so everyone with whom we are sharing data has to be identified on a very high level. And when this country is not giving this opportunity, you cannot use your EUDI wallet there.
Agreed.
Anybody else wants to jump on this?
Yeah, would like to add that obviously governments are good at establishing roots of trust and establishing centralized systems, and good at controlling and performing law enforcement. But centralized systems are also vulnerable to different kinds of attacks, and we see it now in Ukraine that with a cyber attack, you could get a whole country without digital identity documents. Yeah, for a few weeks, maybe even, you know. So when building resilient systems, you need to take it into the account, and decentralized systems and self-sovereign systems are providing this level of kind of service that it allows it to work even when centralized services are not functioning at all. Yeah, it allows to continue issuing credentials, verifying them for users, continue using their documents without, relying on a central government server that is serving this data for them.
Okay, should we go to the next question? Okay, interoperability reality check. What is the hardest unsolved interoperability challenge for digital wallets today? Is it technology, governance, incentives, or regulation? And how close we are actually to cross-border credential exchange?
I can again start with the EU perspective. So, for example, interoperability, I think we solved this in a good way. As I presented, we have the architecture reference framework and the implementing acts you have to follow. For example, we have there strictly defined which credential protocols you have to support, which signature stuff you have to support. You can, of course, do more. For example, blockchain is not a requirement. So a member state could say, well, for our national use cases, we are using blockchain. They could do so, but there's no guarantee that this technology will be supported in other member states. So here it's honestly quite good. And there's also budget for integration tests. So for example, the OpenID Foundation has a great tool to test the transport protocols, and there's more to come. So you can really check if your wallet or issuer verifier is compliant. And when all your checks pass, you can be sure that on the technical level, you are compliant. Also from the governance, as mentioned, each member state has, for example, exactly to publish a certification scheme. So what are the requirements for each EUDI wallet that should be certified in a country? So you have these regulations to have to follow. What is the downside, of course, for every company that now thinks, well, I'm becoming an EUDI wallet provider? There is no business model because EUDI wallets have to be for free for the citizens. So you cannot put it in the Play Store and say, okay, I will charge everyone like $10 a month or so. And you can also not let's say, the PayPal approach or payment approach where you say, okay, I'm getting a piece of the transaction that is done because we are not doing payment transaction. You are shifting data, and you cannot say, okay, I will collect all the data and sell it to Google and whoever because this is against the GDPR. So there is not really a business case. It could be, of course, that you sell your license to one member state. So, for example, France says, okay, we need a wallet. Okay, we will pay this company that we can use their wallet, but they will not pay another company the same amount to have a second wallet because they only need one. So it will be very interesting to see how EUDI wallet providers will be in Europe. Will it just be one for each member state? Will it in the end maybe just one big company, or will there even be other big players like Google or Samsung that they publicly announced to becoming a wallet provider? So they're planning with this because, for example, they say, well, we want to improve our operating system, that when another operating system provider is not doing this, you have a disadvantage. So it's very interesting in Europe to see how this wallet market will play out. The good part is every EUDI wallet has to be open source, but then, of course, competition is getting very difficult. So when you're not one of the first movers, how can you compete in this market?
Any other thoughts?
I would add the interop level certainly that we're seeing with IRA. There's certainly technical interop. That's solvable. The difficulty is there's so many options in technology. There's so many options of interpreting existing specifications that you need the business and governance drivers to actually say, this is the thing we need and here's why we need it. That really does a couple of things. One, it forces people to think about the actual business and governance problem they're solving, and how the technology can map to that. It also is the business driver to actually do the hard work of connecting things, because you can do a bench test and show that things are moving. But when you try to do it in earnest, with real data, it becomes harder, and that's usually a business problem. But Mirko, yeah, your answer, especially on the interop of the wallets, is it's hard, right? They're all it's which wallet for what purpose. If I'm simply sharing, okay, I need to share a government identity document in a different country. That's one particular case where I want to know what the interop options are. Bhutan NDI's approach is very different than the European Union, which is very different from different states doing various different implementations of MDL. They're simply different.
And even then,
I
some
would-
standards allow a variety. So it could be that we both implement the same standard, but you go for option A, I go for option B, and then we are searching for ours, the problem. Because we are like, well, we're using the same, but we are not.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot of folks saying that actually the verification is the point of interoperability. They're the ones who are saying, oh, okay, that's an MDL flavor X, flavor Y. Great, I take them both. Right? As opposed to you need to all use the same. That's simply not going to work.
Yeah, I would like to add on the other side on technical is that when we started implementing privacy preserving technology, is that turned out there is no technology on the market that is able to cover all of the needs that we see are needed actually, like to protect user privacy. That's why we are developing it from scratch, and obviously it is not standardized. We are working on this, but it is a very complicated process of getting digital signatures that are ZK friendly, revocation methods that are privacy preserving and ZK friendly. All of this is kind of missing and non-standard yet, and industry needs to cooperate on this to make good privacy preserving solutions and standards, because as of now we have solutions that worked were designed initially in 80s, you know, and PKI from this era, and ways of signing data and sharing it, and selective disclosure in many approaches is just like you're sharing a field, and then in many cases it is leaking a lot of metadata, even if you are selectively disclosing only one field from the credentials, and all the metadata is still leaked. So it is a problem, and we need to solve it.
Yeah, and it's also as you mentioned, we also did a lot of research in the ZKP stuff. So we know that, for example, I think also in some years ago, the first real credential profile was AnonCreds. A lot of people were happy. Hey, zero knowledge proves all the privacy preserving stuff. So all civil society were really happy. But then when you reviewed it, it was like, okay, you do not have hardware support. It takes a lot of time, so the rollout in production was not possible. And then you say, okay, when I go with bulletproof algorithms like elliptic curves, where I do not have this cool privacy features, but at least I have hardware binding that I can be sure that the key is protected by hardware. So we have this big trade-offs, and even when you today to find the perfect algorithm today, it will take up to a decade that people say, okay, we have reviewed it, because only when it's got reviewed and certified, then the industry will migrate to it, because they will not take the risk spending millions into going in this. And then you have the next threat, the quantum computer. Nobody knows really when it will come, how strong it will be. So there's a lot of variables that you have to consider. And this is also relevant that we are designing crypto agile or agile systems in general, that we could say, okay, when this algorithm is broken, we can just change or swap out the algorithms for another one and do not need to design the whole system from scratch.
Yes, exactly.
Alexander, if we only knew that before. Right? A lot of this is also lessons learned, and Mirko, that's bang on. AnonCreds, interesting tech. It missed the standards track too, which means governments cannot point to it except for a few. My BC Gov person card is AnonCreds, but they put themselves on the line to do that. Not many, that's a very small percentage of governments are going to do that.
Yeah, but there is a problem with AnonCreds cryptography, is that it is so heavy both for blockchain and how it was implemented, that it required downloading like hundreds of megabytes from the blockchain to be able to prove something like non-revocation of your credential. And also it was impossible to do on the user device, which is basically you need to offload it to the server, and then what is the point? It is another point of centralization, and now instead of you controlling it, it is some kind of server that agent is running for you, controlling your identity. So that's why we are building it from scratch, and for using snarks and other techniques to make it work on the user device. Yes, it is not standard and not it is impossible to use on government levels. Yeah.
Maybe interesting. So, for example, today the official standard SDJOT was published. So here the authors say, instead starting from scratch, we say we have JSON Web Token in the industry standards for years, so everyone knows what it is. And they were like, okay, we will add 20% to allow selective disclosure. So the basic idea is you are not signing the payload, so the real data, like my name is Mirko, you are signing the hash of it plus a seed. And then when you present it, you'd say, okay, for the attributes I want to present, I will append the real value. So honestly, a really simple algorithm, but it took like over 3 years to go through the standardization process. And when we now say, okay, how about stuff that starts from scratch? And then when you add complex mathematics, and ZKPs is complex mathematics. So for the real ZKPs, there may be only a handful of people on the world that understand this. And because of this problem, a lot of certifications bodies like NIST and so on will have problems to say, okay, we understood what there is, and we can prove with our reputation that this will gonna work. So because approaches like RSA on prime numbers and basic math, it was easy to understand for us. Even when you go to mid school or so, you could theoretically do this. But ZKP is a whole another level.
I guess we're ready to move to the next one, right? So on governance and who decides if decentralized identity is supposed to be user-centric, who should have final authority over schema evolution, assurance levels, and revocation rules?
Like many things, I think this one depends. I'll throw in the following thought, though. There's often a lot of, in the quote, self-sovereign identity movement, which, I mean, I'm in the self-sovereign identity book. I wrote the Wallets and Nations chapter, so I know it well. There are some folks who say, I should decide what I'm going to share with you. Like, yep, you can. That does not mean you have to accept it, right? If I'm in an interaction with a government, I could show them a picture of me with a family. That's my ID. I don't think they're going to accept it. That's a two-way thing. Now, there are power imbalances that we're talking about. We're decentralizing or appropriately centralizing helps. But it really just depends. If you're talking about an ID, national ID card, the nation should. In the context of how does it work in the world? How does it work with its own citizens? Right? That's a two-way street. There's different parties you have to work with, is my thought.
Definitely, there should be no restriction on the schemas that are used, because there are so many different kinds of credentials that could be issued. It could be application-specific credential, or it could represent something that I just want to state to someone else in a form of verifiable credential just one time. That's it. Like, I don't need it to use second time. So as Daryl said, it is of a big benefit to have standard schemas for passports, for national identity documents. But for the rest, it should be basically industry who would select whichever schemas are popular, and they would natively centralize around these specific schemas, just because there are many issuers who are issuing credentials using the schema and a lot of verifiers using the schema.
Yeah, so we had a huge debate today about this because we were very happy that the EU Commission said, hey, there will be a catalog of attestations where everyone can publish it. So which is really great. As my company, I could publish my membership credential. So not a high level of assurance, but in general, I could say here, I can give these to my employees and so on, and my whole system can be digitalized. Which is really great, but so everyone can publish it there as a discovery mechanism for free. But the downside is now for the verifiers, because everyone can publish everything, what to trust. So when the HR department says, okay, for our onboarding process, we need the bachelor and master degrees, but how do we see in this catalog which are really universities? So there are over 10,000 issuers for bachelor degrees, but who of them are liable? And when you have a gatekeeper before this, like EU Commission or whomever, who really has this classical bureaucratic process, like, okay, please give proof, then of course it's regulated, but maybe the value out of it is much safer because you know everything behind this in this catalog is proven by someone. So it's very difficult to decide which way to go here. I have no perfect question. Of course, when everyone would just be um, in the legal way, so I will not harm anyone else, and this would be the perfect world, but this will not gonna happen.
Yeah, Miracle, that's one of the things that we're doing with the separating the credential from the trust registries. Is I can get that Bachelor of, and you're not recognized as an institution by anybody. Great, that's fine. But that's you can separate it that way. But yeah, it's hard.
Yeah. So this is, for example, what we are in Germany are planning to do. There will be this catalog of attestations so that we all align how a diploma should look like in JSON and so on. So I know this field has this value or this semantic and so on. But then there will be trust service providers who really will say, hey, these are the issuers that we have verified that are authorized to do this. So
Yep.
I fully agree we have to separate this, and
Yep.
then ecosystems have it much easier to trust in it, and then fully automate processes that I could easily say even an AI agent, look, these are the credentials that will come in these semantics, and then it's really good in processing this.
Yeah, for me, like my digital identity, it's not about only identification the persons or entities. It's about, as I mentioned before, it's about the proof of ownership and the question who can manage the transaction with my ownership. So there are no ideal and universal model. But let's say it can be some combination between government membership provider. It can be the list of largest investors in national economy who can who really impact on on all things regarding the capital management and ownership management, and can be some key universities like more independent participants in this scheme. So there are no ideal model. It depends the institutional structure on the national level, but it can be combination between government, like large capital, and more independent participant like universities or some civil organizations.
Yeah, and here is, I think, a very good thing is that there is no limit on number of issued credentials or whatever. Like, if there are actually multiple competing standards for diploma schema, right, or for your data that you want to put in the this credential is not fitting this specific schema, then you could create your own, but then you issue both, the one that is promoted by government or by some standardization body like let's say, Decentralized Identity Foundation, right, or W3C, and also you're issuing the same data in the form of credential that with your custom schema. So if you need some additional fields, you could just issue second credential to the user, and then whatever other verifier want to consume, then yes, this one is mandated one. It is needed to be there. But if you really need some extra data, then you would ask from the user this other schema for the credential.
Okay.
One more thing maybe on the revocation rules that I wanted to touch here in this block is, I think this one should be mandated somehow by the governments, the revocation rules, because it is important to preserve privacy of the users. And if it is solely on the decision of issuer, then we would have like so many different ways. And as always in the systems, the easiest one is the one that would be used by the most. And privacy preserving is not the easiest one, definitely. It is much harder to manage it, but it gives a lot of benefits. The same for signature schemas for the credentials. It requires additional work to be done. It is harder to integrate, but it is very important to push this from the government side to use privacy preserving standards.
Okay, I guess on this note, we will start to come to close. I would like to thank you from my side and all the speakers. And I think it was a really fruitful conversation, helpful for our situation in Ukraine. And yeah, if you have anything to add as last words, please go ahead.
I just add one thing is that when the Bhutan National Digital Identity System joined IRA, I kind of wondered why. Mirko said something earlier that I think is critical that I didn't really understand, which is this: Bhutan is in charge of itself. Bhutan is a small country, 750,000 people. They know that technically they want to be able to share information, but they also know that they do not have a mandate to tell other countries what to do. But even more subtly, they only have so much mandate inside of their own country. They can tell the governments what to do. They can tell the regulated industry players what to do in the context of regulation, not their other business. But the rest of it is no, it's all about sharing simple information. So they're trying to find technical and simple business and governance ways to make sure that if they go to use a Bhutan national identity card in France, that they can do something technically. On the diplomatic side, they're going to need to have country to country or EU to Bhutan relationships that they work on the political side, but they want to make sure that the wires are going to work. So that's a really, really key point there, Mirko, is that, and one of our other, we talk a lot with the Swiss government, who is literally in the EU, but not. They're completely surrounded. They have the same business problem, and it happens in your own country. Germany only has so much mandate. German companies will tell the government, that's nice. No, at a certain level. So you have to have that balance. And that's, I think, what the whole thing is about, is that balance.
I think what is really cool for identity, what we are building here, we can reuse existing components. We can work together on software because it's open source, but we can fully run it independently from others. So when Europe says, okay, we are building something up, they can do so. If Africa says we are building something up, but we do not want to depend on German of servers in the EU or so, or of regulations, they can still do this. So I think it's really good that we work on this and also say, okay, how can we manage trust, that we align on standards? Is it a list? Is it whatever? But that still everyone has their own power to host and control it by themselves. So this will guarantee that we can build stuff up and then test it also, and then look, okay, how we can align on the trust layers and decide, do we want to cooperate or not? So that we are not depending all on one big system, like let's say there's one big blockchain around the world, and where you have to be scared of, like, who will be the owner of this? Like, who's controlling the internet? We saw this some days ago, like, who is controlling the internet? And when something
Cloudflare.
goes down, nothing is working. So this is really good that the chances of this happening in identity is quite low.
Thank you, Max. Like, if we want to implement national level the system, we need to answer the first question: who really owner of the national wells, and understand who is this owner, and from this point we can design the right governance system of the digital identity. Because it's not only about revocation some pieces of identity, but about revocation and restriction of who can own property. So one of the questions we need to answer.
Well, thanks again. Thanks to Linux Foundation again for the support, and I hope to continue our conversations. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Max. Thank you, all our speakers. That was
Thank you
great.
all.